and my Redeemer. Oseh shalom b'mromov, me he who makes peace in the highest heavens. Hu yaseh shalom aleinu, may he make peace for us. V'al kol Yisrael, and for the whole world. V'meru, and let us say, V'meru, amen. Hu yaseh shalom, Hu yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, hu yaseh shalom, hu yaseh shalom, hoi shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'meru, amen. So yesterday in the synagogue, liturgically, we completed the book of Leviticus. And this coming week we'll be beginning the book of Numbers. In the book of Numbers, it's called, traditionally it was called Chumash HaPikudim, the 1/5 of the 5 books of Moses, of the counting. That's why we call it the book of Numbers. But we traditionally now in Jewish circles we call it Bamidbar, in the desert, because it begins, and the Lord spoken to Moses in the desert of Sinai, speaking unto him. And it's interesting, the following day, this Saturday night and Sunday and Monday, is the Feast of Shavuos, the Feast of Pentecost. So I won't be here a week from now, so I won't be here next Sunday. There's nothing. Not Sunday, and my wife won't be here Monday either. Right. So, although, she's here on Mondays. Right? You're right, Mondays when she's here?
Mondays, I think.
I think so, yeah. No, I think she's here Monday and the other building and on Wednesday. So,
sounds right.
So the Shavuos reminds us of the greatest event in world history. Is the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. It's a unique event in world history. If we look in the book of Deuteronomy, Moses says, "I dare you," in Deuteronomy 4 verse 32. I dare you, please ask about the old days from the day when Adam was made on the earth until this very day. Was anything like this ever happened or even been spoken of, that an entire nation should hear the voice of God and live, as you did? So it's a unique event in the annals of history and lore, that an entire nation should hear the voice of God and live, as we did at Sinai. I don't mean that to put down the other religions, but I mean it to lift up ours. The uniqueness of this event, and the other religions recognize that it happened, that God spoke to us at Sinai. It wasn't just Moses by himself up on the mountain. The Bible says the whole nation heard God, and no one else ever made such a claim that an entire nation should hear the voice of God and live. So that's probably the most. So that's the most powerful, in my opinion, the most powerful apologetic argument in all of religion of the world. Again, we can have respect for others without,
so why?
Yeah. So anyway, there's an interesting statement that we're going to also read this Shabbos in Pirkei Avos, the 6th chapter of Pirkei Avos, which is somewhat apocryphal as far as being part of the Mishnah. It's more of a brisa, not really apocryphal in the sense of apocryphal, but it's a brisa. But we include it as part of Pirkei Avos, and it's not. Yeah. So it says there, "B'chol yom, kol yosmer chayrev. B'chol yom, every day, a voice, baskol, a heavenly voice comes down from Mount Horeb. Horeb is another name for Sinai." And
they're not pumping oil out of it.
No, not from the mountain.
That's what I heard.
In the Sinai desert. Nobody knows if that's really Sinai or not. Yeah, nobody knows if that's the real Mount Sinai or not. There's theories that the actual Mount Sinai is in Saudi Arabia, not in the Sinai desert. Nobody knows. It doesn't really matter. But the point of what I'm saying now, that we shouldn't get so hooked. We shouldn't get so hooked up on geography. The important Jerusalem isn't the Jerusalem that's on earth, but the Jerusalem that's in heaven. That my holy answer to the Chavas Yorah wrote like that. That when we're supposed to be facing Jerusalem when we pray, it means that we should be facing in our heart the Jerusalem of heaven, the heavenly Jerusalem. So anyway.
Jehovah's Witness. Only that money.
So, okay.
If you die, you wanna come.
So it says that a voice comes every day from Mount Horeb, from Mount Sinai. It says, "Oy lahem lebrias milbono shel Torah." Woe to them, to the creatures, to the creations, to people, for the disregard and the insult to the Torah. Now, the Baal Shem Tov has a question, like the Zen Buddhists asked if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? So the Baal Shem Tov, along those lines, has a bigger question. He says, why is this voice coming out if we don't hear it? Why does a voice come from heaven, from Mount Sinai, if we don't hear it? And the Baal Shem Tov says we do hear it. It's not a voice that goes in our ears, it's a voice that goes in our hearts. Every day we feel in our hearts, we could be doing better. We should be doing better. Woe to us that we're not living up to what we're supposed to be living up to. But we're supposed to look forward to something greater. My holy ancestor, the Shloh Kodesh, my ancestor, the Rav Levi Yushalmi, who was the Rav in Belgrade, he was a very colorful character. He was an Einikel from the Shloh Kodesh. But he was also, the Rav Levi Yushalmi was also the Rav in Temeshvar. So anyway, the Shloh Kodesh brings that tomorrow, the day before Rosh Chodesh Sivan, is a very special day to pray for our children, for our disciples, for the people we have influence on. We should be going in the right way. And it's true, we have to pray for this, that there should be kind people and pious people and scholars, Mari Torah, Mari Mishnah, Mari Talmud, Mari Raza, Mari Midas Trumios. Like he says there, they should be masters of Torah, masters of Mishnah, masters of Talmud, masters of Kabbalah, of the mysteries of Torah, masters of good attributes, good character, people of fine character, and so forth. It's a big thing. There are things that sometimes, the Jewish people were known as the people in exile. I mentioned the Buddhists. They say that the Dalai Lama, he's not a Zen Buddhist. He's a
Buddha.
It's
religion.
Yeah.
Asia, right?
Yeah. No, from India. It's Asian. It's an Asian religion. So one branch of the Buddhists is the Tibetan Buddhists. Their leader is the Dalai Lama, and he's in exile. So one time when he's from Tibet, but he lives in Nepal, and so he called a group of rabbis to come and teach him what's the secrets of surviving in exile, because we're the people who were able to survive in exile. But exile isn't only a national issue. Exile is a personal issue, and so I want to tell a story like this, an amazing story that I read today, and I was listening to teachings about it. I'll preface it that one of my teachers, a teacher of mine from high school, and now is a rabbi of a big congregation. He had started the congregation already when I was in high school there, over 20 years ago. It was when he started the congregation. Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, he's a rabbi in Long Island, in Woodmere, in Nassau County. And Rabbi Weinberger, every now and then, he'll take his congregants on a tour to make a pilgrimage. And usually they'll visit places in Europe, holy places, and then go to the Holy Land after that. So he had made a trip to Poland, he had made a trip, I believe, to Ukraine, and this time he went to Hungary. I mean, he actually went to Hungary, but also part of what's now Ukraine and Romania and other parts that are all by the border there. And visited holy places in Hungary where his family's from. Both of his parents were from Hungary, so he visited the town where his father came from, the town where his mother came from. Budapest is the capital of Hungary. So one of my ancestors was the chief rabbi of Budapest, of the old Budapest, Althofen. Yeah. So anyway, it was Budapest. Actually, 3 different cities. There's Pest, and there's Buda, and there's Old Buda. So one of my they called Althofen, or they would call in Hebrew they called it Oibenushin, and so that's where as part of one of my Zaydis was Reuven in Oibenushin, and the Old Buda, the Old Budapest. No relation to the Buddhists. Buddha just means water because it's by the Danube River, and they were in Budapest also on this trip, and then for Shabbos they were in the Holy Land. And I believe today they visited a little village in the Holy Land called Kfar Hasidim. I was mentioning it to one of our congregants in the synagogue this morning. He said he had lived in Kfar Hasidim, and he was fascinated by it. It's just an incredible story. So Kfar Hasidim was founded by two Hasidic Rebbes. It was the Yabloner Rebbe, Rabbi Cheskel Taub, who was an anicle of the famous Rabbi Cheskel Taub, the Divrei Cheskel, the Kuzmir. That's where the Modritz dynasty comes from, one of the famous Hasidic dynasties of Poland, very famous for their music. And so he came from that lineage, from that family. And then there was also an anicle from the Koznitzer Maggid, who was called the Koznitzer Rebbe, who also helped to found Kfar Hasidim. This was already in the 1920s. And so the Yabloner Rebbe became Rebbe als junger Mann. He was 25 years old when he inherited this position to be the Grand Rabbi of Yabloner. And he had inherited a big group of Hasidim, of disciples, thousands of people, men, women, and children, who were his community. And he came up with the idea, with a few other people, he was going to go to the Holy Land. Things were tough in Poland. They were going to get up and move to the Holy Land. Now, a lot of people are very, very idealistic. They want to go to the Holy Land. And they don't realize that the Talmud says there are certain things, Eretz Yisrael nikna b'yisurim. The Holy Land can only be really acquired with suffering. And there was tremendous suffering there. There was probably 600 families wanted to go, 300 families made it. The rest of them got stuck there. There was a whole thing, and while they were there and making the settlement in the 20s, there was all kinds of issues with buying the land. There was confusion and things, and then they had issues with there were poisonous snakes. I think it was his sister got bitten by a snake and was killed. All kinds of horrible things happened there in the Holy Land, and a lot of the people who were trying to develop the Holy Land, they didn't want them there. You know, people heard of David Ben-Gurion was the first prime minister of the modern state of Israel. He was very angry. He said, why are Hasidim coming, wasting good land? That was how he saw it. He didn't have love for his fellow Jew. It was all about his ideology. But the Yabloner Rebbe, he meant well, but he saw he was failing, and he was very upset, and there was financial issues, and so he had to come to America to raise money. So he came was already in the 30s. He came to America to raise money, the early 40s, and 1939 the war broke out, and 41 America entered the war, and the Yabloner Rebbe was there, and we're talking about World War II. America went into World War II. So then FDR, so then the Yabloner Rebbe said, I want to serve in America, in the army or in the military. They say, you're a man in your 40s, you're an immigrant from Poland, you're not an American citizen, we have nothing for you to do. They said, give me something to do. They gave him to work on the ships, building ships in California. He was working for the military, building ships, and he worked extra during the week so he could take off Shabbos. He worked overtime of the week so he could take off Shabbos, and he was helping the war effort. And he was really, he couldn't get the money together to send back to the Holy Land. And he was doing that for 3 years. And the word came, 1944, what was actually going on in Europe and how many people, millions of people who got murdered in the genocide from the Nazis, Yimach Shemam. And he was so depressed, he said, look, I couldn't get my Hasidim out of Poland. And the ones I brought to the Holy Land, I ruined their lives. I'm just a total failure in life. He was so depressed, he just dropped his whole religion, shaved off his beard, stopped putting on a yarmulke, stopped praying, stopped keeping the Sabbath, stopped keeping kosher, didn't even keep Yom Kippur, nothing. And he went on and lived his life. I don't think he got married. But he learned how to build. So he started building houses, and he started making money. And then he started investing in real estate. By that time, he'd become an American citizen. He changed his name from Yechezkel Taub to George Nagel. Sometimes he called himself George Nickel. And this George Nagel, he lived his life. He was a successful businessman. A few people knew he was really the Yabloner Rebbe. But he wasn't from anymore. He wasn't religious anymore. He wasn't observant. And one of his, he lived in L.A. One of his friends said, the Sadiger Rebbe is coming for Shabbos. Come to the Tish. He said, He said, come on. He said, I'll come to the Tish as long as you don't tell anybody who I am. I can just sit with everybody else. I'll put on a hat, whatever, or yarmulke. I'll sit with everybody. At the Tish, good is enough, but don't tell anybody I'm Yabloner Rebbe. I'm not Yabloner Rebbe anymore. I'm not Yechezkel Tob anymore. I'm George Nickel now. So he
changed his mind.
But he came to the Tish and he's sitting there, and not to be disrespectful to Sadiger Rebbe, I'm sure he was a big tzaddik. Different tzaddikim have different ways. He tried his best, I'm sure. It was a small group who came there. It wasn't like now in L.A. where there are a lot of Hasidim, a lot of people go to Streimlich even Shabbos. It was a few Holocaust survivors. They came to a Tish, and one of the guys who was sitting there, he was kind of upset. He wasn't that impressed. He said, this is a Tish, this is a Rebbe. He said, when I was a bocher before the war in Poland, I remember a Rebbe. I remember a Tish. I remember Yabloner Rebbe was such a big tzaddik. I would go to the Tish by Yabloner Rebbe. And he got up and stormed out because this is not a Tish. By Yabloner Rebbe was a Tish. He didn't realize that sitting right across from him at the table, there's only about 10, 15 people there, maybe 20 people. And the Yabloner Rebbe was sitting there clean shaven, didn't realize it was him there. So the years went on. His business went down. It was already the 60s. And he had a heart attack. His friends said, maybe come back to the Holy Land, things are different now. And he said, no, they don't want to kill me there. I ruined their lives. And anyway, I'm not going to get out of the hospital. He said, what are you talking about? He thought he was going to die. He had a heart attack. He thought his life was over. He said, well, if I get out of the hospital, you know what? I want to go to college. He was already in his 70s. He went to college. He got his bachelor's degree in psychology. And then he started working as a therapist, and he realized this was what he had grown up. He was a Rebbe giving people advice. That's what he was supposed to be. So then his friend said, "Come on, you got your degree now. Come, just visit one time Kfar Hasidim. Visit this village that you created." He said, "All right, but I'm not moving there. I'm staying in L.A. But you're twisting my arm." It was his nephew. You're twisting my arm, fine, I'll go visit. But they're not going to want to see me there. They're going to hate me there. I ruined their lives making them go to this place. And I should have organized it better. I should have planned it better. It's all my fault. How many people died? It's all my fault. He gets there, and he comes in to the shul, and all the people there in town, they knew he was coming. They're like, Rebbe. He was clean shaven. Rebbe, they were kissing his hand, and this one lady said, Rebbe, you don't know, you saved my life, because I would have been in Poland, I would have been killed in the war. You saved my life, and look, I have a daughter and grandchildren. I have 3 generations because of you, because you brought me here. He's like, what? He's like,
you was having a shelter, you preach a shelter?
I don't know.
So he said,
yeah. So he said, yeah. So he said,
Where is that?
that border of New York.
Finish the story. So then he moved back. He was only going to visit. He decided, all right, he got all his stuff, went back to LA, brought all his stuff back. He moved there, took Kfar Hasidim. He grew his beard back, starting putting tefillin again, started davening, and he became again the Yabloner Rebbe. He was. I mean, he wasn't like Hasidim, like in Poland or in like Mea Shearim or Bnei Brak, but it was a nice little frum community. And he was like the Rebbe there. He would say a shir once a week. He was already an old man in his 90s, and people would come Friday night to his house, and they'd sit around the table and they'd sing the old songs, and he'd teach the 3rd generation the songs that he had from Yechezkel Kuzmer, the songs that he had from Poland, and he ended his life again as the Yabloner Rebbe after having lived 30 years secular. He did tshuva, he repented, and he went back to being Yabloner Rebbe. Some people say, well, it doesn't mean putting a spadek and a bekesh and everything, but he grew his beard, he had a yarmulke on, and he davened 3 times a day. He would sing the zmiras and everything, and fear a shtickle tish, and he was the Rebbe again. And the thing that Rabbi Weinberger said from this story, so Rabbi Weinberger took his congregants to the grave of the Yabloner Rebbe, and he said, people think, all right, so it's a strange thing to have a Hasidic Rebbe leave Judaism and then come back at the end of his life. It's a little out of the ordinary. So people, it's a curiosity. He's like, it's more than that. He's like, first of all, do you think for one moment when he stopped, even though outwardly he wasn't doing anything, and maybe even outwardly in what his conscious mind was, he stopped being Yabloner Rebbe, but really he never for 1 minute stopped being Yabloner Rebbe. He was going into Golus. He was in Golus the whole time. He was in exile. He was still the Rebbe, just he was hidden. He hid himself, and that was the Golus. And the thing is, we all go through that. We have holiness in our lives. We think we're so. And the thing was that he was just so depressed, because he thought he ruined these people's lives, and he didn't realize he saved hundreds of lives. And the same thing, we think we're doing all kinds of bad things, and it gets us depressed, and we think we're not good enough, and why should anybody like us? But the thing is, we're all doing so many good things. This Yabloner Rebbe, he learned by Rebbe Melech from Gudzinsk, who was the father of the Pisetzner. And people know the Pisetzner, he always said, there's nothing bigger than doing someone else a favor. And he said, can you imagine in Warsaw Ghetto, where he was the Rebbe, the Pisetzner, how many favors you can do for people? You're here where you're here. You could give a smile to someone, say a nice word, cheer them up when they're depressed. No, it's warm outside. And you're doing somebody else a favor. You're making someone else feel good. Look at all the good things. Count your blessings. Each one of you has holiness and goodness in your lives. Don't sell yourself short. That was his mistake. All those 40 years he was in exile, he was selling himself short. But in the end, he realized God had a different plan. And so if we have faith in God and love God and recognize that God has a plan for us, and whatever happens, even when we do something wrong, even when we do something wrong ourselves, that's part of God's plan. We shouldn't go and do things wrong on purpose. But once it happens, don't let it depress you, because God has some kind of plan in your life. Try to just get back on the horse. It says, Sheva Yipul Tzadik V'kom, the righteous man, he falls 7 times, he gets back up. And that's the difference, is the righteous person gets back up. Don't give up hope. You have so much hope in your lives. You have so much goodness in your lives. Live your lives. Be happy. Look for the joys in life, the joy of breathing air, the joy of drinking water, the joy of eating food, the joy of if you enjoy music, you enjoy a TV show with a good joke or something, or a nice story that makes you feel good. Be thankful to God for the ability to feel that. And in that way we can be worthy to come out of our own personal exiles and be all that we can be, and really be ourselves, and listen to that voice that's coming from Sinai. It might be depressing us when we hear that voice coming from Sinai that's in our souls. It might be pushing us away, but really it's drawing us close. We should embrace that voice from Sinai and live it, and not make a beneficial Torah, not insult the Torah, but just the opposite. We should lift up the Torah, honor the Torah, that great gift that God gave us on this day of Shavuos, that great gift of the message of how much God loves us, that He lifted us on the wings of eagles, He made us a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. He loves us, He cares about us, He wants what's best for us. And the thing is, we don't realize sometimes that everything we're looking for we already have. Sometimes we might be physically trapped somewhere, but spiritually we can really be free. And sometimes people who are materially free are spiritually trapped. So let's try to make the best of all these things, be happy, and look forward to good things. God bless, and thank you.